Hi, Education 1800 folks. Just want to give you a quick screencast to get you set up for your independent learning this week. If you remember, last week we met at the library and we found some interesting resources. Everything from children's picture books to music that we could use for our brain breaks, as well as special kinds of books like sight word books and picture books, books about sports, and even where the nonfiction or new books are going to be. Um, if you look on our Blackboard website, you'll see that Katie Ross has sent us a handout that has live links to all of the materials that she introduced. So that might be a resource for you as you start planning your integrated unit. This week, I really want you to think about your special topics project. And I would like you to look at that assignment as it's described in the syllabus. You need to think of a topic that relates to health, music, movement, or arts education, and create a project. Think about how you will or what you will explore, and talk a little bit about how you'll share what you learned with us as a class. That might be through a presentation or maybe a Google Doc resource. Maybe you'll have us watch a movie that was part of your process. But the idea is you need to come up with some kind of description of what you plan to do and how you'll share it with the class. Now, looking at the things that you wrote for this current weekly prep, I took some of the language that you might have proposed, and maybe I'm moving it in a little more researchable direction. So here are some of the things you might think about selecting for special topics. And if you have something different than this, you're welcome to develop that into proposal. So these are just some examples. And I'm hoping that maybe seeing some of these will help people think about what they would pick. So one idea would be exploring the use of yoga in classrooms. There is a group in Columbus called the Youth Yoga Project that you might want to get in touch with. They teach teachers how to do yoga in classrooms of various ages, and they could be a great resource for you. Another idea might be mindfulness practices. So, how to help children be aware of their thinking and their feelings so that they can manage them. And this is like a researchable term. I'm giving you researchable terms. If you put this in a Google window, you'd find lots of resources. Also, last week in an announcement, I sent you a resource of a group that does cooperative recess games. So, teaching kids how to move and work together to develop social emotional skills at the same time during recess. And I see this happening in more places, even in Westerville. Some schools actually contacted me to see if we wanted to do some cooperative recess game development with their students. So this could be a project, figuring out what those games look like and creating some resources maybe for the class. Other folks seem to be interested in things around nutrition. So how do we teach nutrition? What's important to know about nutrition in schools? There's a group here in Columbus called Local Matters, a nonprofit that actually goes into schools and teaches kids how to prepare healthy meals. They also coordinate community gardens around the city so that folks in places where they can't necessarily get a lot of access to fresh fruits and vegetables can have opportunities to grow those. Trauma-informed pedagogy is a way of thinking about kids who have experienced trauma and how that influences their learning and their lives in schools. You might want to look more into bullying. What is it? How do we prevent it in schools? The other thing you could do for a special topics project is you could explore resources in town and then report back to us what you found. So, for example, you might be interested in art opportunities in the city of Columbus. You could get in touch with the Columbus Museum of Art and or maybe the Wexner Center for the Arts, the Columbus Arts Council. Just explore what the resources are related to arts. You could do the same thing for music. You could see if the Columbus Orchestra or the Columbus Jazz Ensemble, the Columbus Opera has activities and opportunities for school children typically during the year. So you could do that as sort of a special topics. We haven't talked about it in class, but it would be a really nice thing to kind of explore. How do you teach a song? Or maybe you wanted to look more into creating a curated collection of songs for specifically getting kids moving or songs for learning. Maybe you're interested in a particular artist like Jim Gill and you want to learn everything there is to know about Jim Gill and the work he does with students, and you would like to share that with us as a class. So these are just some general ideas to get you started. Um, and I think that part of your weekly prep will be having you sort of stake a claim to something that you want to work on, whether it's on this list or it's something that you're going to do independently. That's fine. All right, so take a look at that special topics project assignment in the syllabus so you can move your work forward. I wanted to show you this quick little brain break idea. This is called a sensory path. And it's a really unusual way to build some space in a school where kids can take a movement break when they need it. So let's see what this looks like. So a sensory path might be another way of thinking about brain breaks. If you haven't already signed up for your brain break topic, you want to make sure you go into that Google Doc and sign up for that. Next week, we'll have 2 brain breaks. We'll have Anna's brain break and whoever signed up for next week. All right, your weekly prep 4 is predominantly going to be about giving you time to find resources that will help you get your integrated unit started. So the first thing you absolutely need to do is identify grade level content area standard. So you go into the Ohio Department of Education standards for social studies, science, mathematics, or literacy, and you pick one standard in a grade level that your unit will focus on. And then I want you to locate 10 instructional ideas related to that standard. And I'll show you in a minute how to do that. I want you to locate and annotate 10 media resources that could be used in that unit. That includes picture books or poetry books, music, maybe pieces of art, video that could be used in the unit. So you have a lot of different options. So for example, for my, I'm going to pretend that I'm doing a kindergarten standard. The math standard is identifying shapes. So I am looking at this standard. It's a geometry standard for kindergarten. And I want to help kids be able to describe objects in the environment using names of shapes. Also to use those objects to explore terms like below, beside, in front, behind, and next to. Now, this is kind of one of those more narrow standards. So I'm going to add more to this. Our units are going to be sort of 2-week study units. So we're thinking of plans for sort of 10 days worth of work, activities for 10 days. And so I'm going to add to my one standard this idea of correctly named shapes regardless of their orientation or size, and I identify shapes as two-dimensional lying on a plane or flat. And I think I could also, it's not a very big standard. I think for 2 weeks I could also describe some 2 and 3-dimensional shapes. So this is what I'm looking to accomplish. So the first thing you need to do is find a standard that you want to work with. The older grades that you work with, and you can work with any grade, kindergarten through grade 5, the standards become more complex. And so one little standard line would take you 2 weeks probably to identify and work through. In kindergarten, the curriculum is a little bit more simple, so I might be able to accomplish more than one standard. So as you're looking at the standards, just take a look to see, does this look like something that I could explore over 2 weeks, 10 days? And if not, you might want to look at standards next to the standard that you're looking at to see if maybe you can address 2 in the unit that you're working on. So I'm going to do a kindergarten shapes unit. And I know I need to work on identifying 2-dimensional as well as 3-dimensional shapes. And I need to have kids naming them regardless of their orientation. And I need them to be making shapes and combining shapes to make larger shapes. So that's kind of the work. So step 1 is to find a standard and grade level that you're interested in working with, and really get to know that standard or the standards that you're going to address. All right. Then, you're going to go back to developing some resources. So you're going to develop some resources. I can do this. And here's what you're going to do. You've got the grade level and the content standard, or standards, depending on how robust they are, for 2-week unit. And then you're going to have to locate 10 instructional ideas related to that standard and 10 media resources. Okay, so if I'm doing the shapes unit, I have looked online for books about shapes, accessing the Westerville library resource that Katie Ross told us about last week. And I found this book called Shapes it's not a book, it's a music video called Shapes by Pancake Manor. And I have linked the URL here too. So by annotate, I mean you're going to name it and where it comes from. So if this were a textbook, I'd have the text name, the author and illustrator's name, and the publisher and the date. If it's a video or a link, I'm just going to put the link in here. And then the annotation means you describe what it is and how it might be useful to you so you can remember it. So Sing Along Song shows 2 characters identifying shapes as they walk around the neighborhood. It could be used as a brain break or an intro to a similar activity, a shape scavenger hunt. The video takes 2 minutes long. So this is important because it will help you remember how you might be able to use this later on as you're planning the movement, art, and health aspects of this integrated unit. So I think the easiest way for you to do this might be to just use a Google Doc that you share with me and or other folks in the class. On the weekly prep, I will put up an actual Word document, so you could cut and paste things into the Word document. But especially if you have a partner or a small group that you're working on together to create this integrated unit, it might be really easy to just open a Google document. So here's my Google Doc. So if you've never worked with Google Docs, when you're on your university toolbar here, if you go into the apps section and then Google Drive, that takes you to the Google Drive, and then you would just hit new, and you could hit new Google Doc right here. And it gives you a page like a Word document with this toolbar, very similar to a Word document, that you can add to. So I'm going to go back to my Google Drive and let's see, the one that I have created for my class year, Shapes, Kindergarten Unit. Here it is. Okay, it's already open, sorry. Ugh. All right, okay, so here's my Google Doc, and you can see I've just put the standard right in here. I just cut and paste the standard onto the form, and then I'm looking for 10 instructional ideas related to the standard. So I've been surfing around the internet looking for ideas. I found some on some teacher blogs, and really I'm searching under just kindergarten shape unit. So I have found some on circles. Here's some sorting. These are three-dimensional shapes. They're sorting. I like this kind of writing activity. Here's a little sorting activity. I like using these blocks, the three-dimensional shapes, to do some artwork, but exploring the two-dimensional planes of those three-dimensional shapes. So right here, oh, I've got a little book here. It identifies all of the different shapes. But then when I was looking at this book, I actually found a book I like better because it has easier language, and I could see kindergartners actually reading this kind of book. So as you create resources, I think the idea is you may find 10, but you may end up getting rid of some. So like I'm getting rid of that one because this is better. I like this idea of making things with the shapes. In like a two-dimensional format. I might actually have kids making things with the shapes in terms of the three-dimensional cylinders and spheres, that kind of thing. All right, so this is just getting me started in a very short period of time. I've already got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I already got 8 ideas, and I only need 10 for this bit of homework. And then for the media, I have media for this unit. You can see here I found a book called Mouse Shapes, again at the Westerville Library by Emily Stoll-Walsh. So here you want to just put the name of the text and the author. If there's an illustrator, you can put that. And then I'm just going to annotate it, which means describe how that media might be useful to me. This is a book where mice work together to use shapes to make pictures. The definitions of the shapes are in the text. So they talk about what is a square, what is a hexagon. And then I have a little link to a YouTube video where somebody's reading it aloud. So if I wanted to, I could use this read aloud if I was unable to find the book. So here's one. I just need to find, oh, and I had one from that slide too. So I have 2. I need to find 8 more. The idea here is in finding these resources, it will give you ideas that we can then put in order to create this particular unit. Once the unit is created, then we can figure out the spaces where we're going to add the movement, the health, the art lessons into the work. So your goal for next week is to really be focusing on the 2 projects that you have for this class, the bigger projects, the special topics project and this work on the integration unit. You can use the form that I will put on Blackboard for this, or you can create a Google Doc and share that Google Doc with me. Just to show you, let's see, let me show you again this Google Doc business. Here's the Google Doc. If I wanted to share this with people that I was working with, I could just go up here to share, and I could type the emails of the people that are in my group and share it with them directly. If you want to share it with me, you got to put my name and I'm sorry, just my email address in there so it will go to me. So that's one way to do this. I'd like you to I bring your social emotional learning books back next week, as well as your technology, so your laptops. We will be recording those books, the social emotional learning books. So another thing you could do this week is to just practice reading aloud that book so that it's nice and fluent, and see which of those social emotional learning standards you think your book is addressing. So you'll bring your 2 social emotional learning books back, your tech, and this weekly prep for our next face-to-face class. If you have any questions, just send me an email. Thanks and have a great day.